This is breaking news.
NYPD Chief of Detectives Rodney Harrison and Acting U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York, Seth Ducharme, are making a major announcement. They have new information in the cold case murder of DJ Jam Master Jay of the rap group Run-DMC. The murder was in a Queens recording studio in 2002. Let's go to the announcements now.
We're here today to announce the fact that a grand jury here in the Eastern District has returned an indictment, and we have alleged that two defendants, Carl Jordan Jr. and Ronald Washington, are responsible for the murder of Jason Mizell, who's known to many of us as Jam Master Jay from the hip-hop group Run-DMC. You know, this is a case that's been around for a long time, as many of you know. Back in 2002, on October 30th, we allege that the defendants Jordan and Washington walked into the music studio in Queens where Mr. Mizell and others, and they shot him in cold blood. Our office, along with our federal partners and the NYPD, started working that case in the early 2000s, very soon after the murder. And there were a lot of challenges that we faced right away. In fact, one of the first cases that I worked on when I was here as a prosecutor in 2008 was this very case. And these gentlemen and our team were able to accomplish what I was frankly not then able to accomplish. And it's really through their hard work and the work of the Queens Cold Case Detective Squad, the FBI, who was with us at the outset, and the ATF, who has joined us along the way, really never gave up on this case. It was important to us then, and it remains extremely important to us now to bring justice for the victim and his family and his friends and the community that cared so much about those events. I'm not going to talk in detail about the case or the investigation. We have public charges filed and a detention letter that will be before the court, and that will contain some more information. I think it's important that we recognize that this is just the first step in a process. That charges in an indictment, as you know, are allegations. That every defendant has a right to hold the government to its burden of proving guilt beyond a reasonable doubt in a courtroom, and that's what we intend to do with respect to these defendants. I also think it's important in this time for us to recognize that there are certain crimes for which the passage of time affords no safe harbor, and murder is one of them. We've charged this case with respect to Mr. Jordan as a drug-related homicide and the use of a firearm in connection with that offense, and the same charges apply to Mr. Washington. Also, with respect to Mr. Jordan, we've charged a conspiracy, narcotics distribution count, and 7 substantive distribution counts. But primarily, this is a case about a murder that for nearly 2 decades had gone unanswered. And so today we begin to answer that question of who killed Jason Mizell and why, and we're confident that we can prove those charges beyond a reasonable doubt. So with that, I'm going to turn the podium over to Chief of Detectives Harrison. I'm sorry, I did detect there was some background noise there at the outset. I don't know, was everybody able to hear my earlier remarks? Sure, I can repeat those. I'm happy to do that. So, a grand jury returned an indictment here in the Eastern District of New York charging 2 defendants, Carl Jordan Jr. and Ronald Washington, for their involvement in the murder of Jason Mizell, who I think you all know was known as Jam Master Jay and part of the group Run-DMC. And what we've alleged in that indictment is that on October 30th, 2002, nearly 20 years ago, Mr. Jordan and Mr. Washington walked into a music studio in Queens where Mr. Mizell and others were working, essentially, and hanging out. And they walked in and they murdered him in cold blood. And we started investigating that case a very long time ago, in the early 2000s, but there were a lot of challenges associated with bringing that case. And you know, it's really thanks to the hard work of the Queens Cold Case Squad and the FBI at times and the ATF and these prosecutors that, you know, we collectively in law enforcement, you know, never gave up on the case and are very pleased that we were able to finally bring those charges. And I think I reminded folks, if you couldn't hear me, that this is really just a first step. It is way too soon for self-congratulations here, but because the victim's family has waited so long for some answer, some justice for Mr. Mizell, we felt it was worthy of addressing you and informing the public, and just more broadly that, you know, for the crime of murder, the passage of time offers you no escape. The office has a long, proud tradition of doing cold case murders and working with our local partners and federal partners, and we don't give up on these cases. And these prosecutors and their investigators really did a fantastic job. We couldn't do it in 2002, couldn't do it in 2005, we didn't do it in 2008, but today we begin the path to justice. So hopefully you could hear that. And now I'll turn it back over to Chief of Detectives Rodney Harrison, and then Assistant Special Agent in Charge Daryl McCormick will follow him. Thank you very much. Chief?
So good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here today. This is another case of New York City detectives showing that they're the greatest detectives in the world. An incident that happened in 2002 being solved 18 years later. The relentless pursuit to bring this case to justice is absolutely incredible. And it's due to the partnerships that we have, with Eastern District prosecutors. I want to thank you for your work. Our relationships with ATF, thank you very much, was able to bring justice to a case that seemed to be going in the wrong direction, but we were able to get indictments on. I have to take advantage of this opportunity to give a shout out to our cold case squad under Sergeant Dennis Klein, our Queens South homicide investigators, our detective investigators from the 103 squad, as well as the 105 squad, that really initiated a positive debriefing that resulted in revisiting this case. So a lot of work was done by a lot of different men and women involved. Me being a native of Queens and being a big fan of Run-DMC and Jam Master Jay, making this arrest was very, very important to me. So once again, I want to thank everybody for coming out, but I also want to thank our partners in regards to solving this case. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Daryl McCormick. I'm the Assistant Special Agent in Charge of the ATF here in New York City. ATF joined this case in 2016, and since then we've worked diligently with our partners at NYPD and the U.S. Attorney's Office to solve the senseless murder of Jason Mizell, known as Jam Master Jay. NYPD detectives and ATF special agents employed a wide variety of investigative techniques to uncover the evidence that led us where we are here today to announce these arrests and these indictments. The investigation demonstrates the collaborative commitment that we bring to justice those involved in violent gun crime in New York City and across the country. To the family and friends of Mr. Mizell, who've endured a heavy burden of grief over these many years, we hope that today's arrests and indictments and this announcement will bring some measure of peace, knowing that those responsible will be held accountable. I want to also thank the United States Attorney's Office and the NYPD for the excellent collaborative work and the enormous effort put in by all those investigators and prosecutors in this case. Thank you very much.
Thanks. I just want to add that Mr. Jordan will be arraigned by a video teleconference this afternoon. Mr. Washington will be arraigned at a later date to be determined by the court. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much.